What used to be a cheap instant snack is now a dining experience people wait hours in line for. So how did ramen go from a 14-cent meal to an Instagrammable $18 bowl?
We're here at Karaku in LA's Little Tokyo to learn more.
Ramen is so much more than the instant packages you survive on in college or when cash is low. It's a complex soup that can take hours to make. Typically, ramen is a combination of wheat noodles, broth, and protein. The broth is made of animal bones and gets its thickness from how the bones are cooked.
Hi, Jenny.
Hey!
Hi. Thanks so much for meeting here. Yeah, this is great. So why did you want to come here to this particular ramen restaurant in all of Little Tokyo?
Yeah, well, there is a lot of ramen in LA now, but this was the first ramen shop that opened in the US back in 1976. And many other ramen shops have said that they're the first, but this place really was the first place.
Okay.
Back when they opened, ramen was not kind of this like artisan thing that people were crazy about. It was very much a new concept.
So how did ramen become so popular, and where did it come from in the first place?
The first iterations of ramen kind of came to Japan from China in the 19th century, where it was like this wheat noodle. They kind of referred to it as Chinese soba.
Shina soba, which translates to China and noodle dish, was popular among blue-collar Chinese people. How it made its way to Japan is still up for debate. One popular theory is that a Chinese scholar brought the dish to a Japanese nobleman. Another is that a restaurant in Tokyo started selling it after hiring Chinese workers.
It wasn't until after World War II, when the US started importing a lot of wheat into Japan, that ramen noodles became a lot more popular, a lot more ubiquitous.
The US, which occupied Japan after World War II from 1945 to 1952, fought a food shortage by rationing meals and importing wheat. The wheat helped support ramen street vendors and shops. Japan's ramen craze would later grab the attention of food entrepreneur Momofuku Ando.
He saw ramen shops and they were becoming much more popular, but he could see that it takes a long time to cook a noodle, and he wanted to make the process more efficient.
Momofuku Ando spent years experimenting with a recipe that would rehydrate and recook noodles in a matter of minutes. Using his wife's tempura oil, Ando discovered that frying noodles in oil allowed the noodles to dehydrate and created tiny perforations that made them faster to cook in hot water. In 1958, Ando came up with the original instant chicken ramen. It took only 3 minutes to cook.
Before then, I don't think convenience food really was a thing yet. And being able to suddenly see this new world where what used to take 15 minutes to eat now takes 3. Yeah, and the Japanese have voted it one of the best inventions of the 20th century.
Japan loves their ramen so much, there's actually 3 museums dedicated to it. The Shin Yokohama Ramen Museum, the Cup Noodles Museum, and the Momofuku Ando Instant Ramen Museum. Instant noodles were mainstream America's first introduction to ramen in the 1970s.
Top ramen and cup of noodles came to the States in the 70s, and because it was very cheap, you can buy one for 25 cents when it first started. It became obviously very popular with college students or just as a filling late night snack, and also it's super craveable. Ramen became this thing that you would want at midnight or at all hours of the day.
Instant ramen now sells for about 14 cents a bowl in the US, thanks to its inexpensive ingredients, which include flour, starch, oils, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, preservatives, and additives.
I've eaten many instant ramen packages in my life. This is obviously very, very different. There's a lot of cooking time in this and a lot of different flavor profiles, and not necessarily what you're getting in instant ramen. But this type of ramen didn't really start to become popular mainstream until really recently.
Yes.
So how did it get from, oh, ramen is instant in a package to I'm gonna go to a ramen restaurant?
As Asian Americans have become a bigger minority within the US population, there's been more interest in Japanese culture. I mean, obviously sushi has spread pretty far and wide now, and with that, ramen or fancy tempura has also become more accepted and more sought out.
And it's not just sushi and ramen. Sales of Asian fast food grew 135% in the US from 1999 to 2014.
We did finally start seeing all this traction with ramen after David Chang kind of popularized it.
In 2004, Chef David Chang opened his successful and critically acclaimed restaurant, Momofuku Noodle Bar in New York City.
David Chang actually took that name, and that was what inspired Momofuku and his delivery company, Ando. So,
Like a shout out?
yeah, exactly.
Chang and the boom of food blogging in the early 2000s helped make gourmet ramen popular. Ramen businesses worked closely with bloggers to create media about gourmet ramen instead of just ads.
Part of what sort of happened with the gourmet scene is that there's people going to Japan to learn things about ramen and then coming back and sort of opening their own shops. And not all of those people are Japanese, right? I mean, David Chang is Korean. Is that okay to you?
I think that's a tough call, right? Because I think for many Asian people, especially when people didn't know about our culture's food, you want it to be more popular, and whoever spreads it is kind of a champion, right? I'm all for people going to any of the Asian countries, learning information and being able to disseminate it in a very positive way, in a respectful way.
Do you think that Japanese food sort of plays a part in opening up the culture to other people?
Yeah, I think being able to eat a food from a different culture, you understand viscerally, innately something about them. You kind of understand the Japanese philosophy of how they even make ramen. When you go to Japan, there are ramen chefs who literally only make ramen their entire lives, and the dedication. You understand something about the Japanese psyche as well.
I have recently been introduced to a thing called a ramen burger, and I want to know how you feel about it.
It's not anywhere close to what ramen should be, or how it's supposed to be served, or how it should really taste. There's also who's making the ramen burger? Where did the idea come from? Is it doing Japanese food cuisine a favor or a disservice, having people see ramen in this light? It might be doing more harm than it is good.
So some people would say, well, teaching people about the world is not my responsibility. I just want to make the ramen that I feel like making.
Yeah.
What's your response to that?
For a long time, that was kind of seen as the right way to be a chef. You just want to make the best food, the fanciest food, the prettiest food, etc. But I think especially in our current political climate, you don't get the privilege of saying that as a chef. Food history matters, food culture matters, and if you are going to be a professional in the food industry, that's part of your job too.
Wow. Thank you so much for teaching me stuff about ramen.
Of course.
No, thank you so much for teaching me the history, and we talked a lot about culture, and I really can't wait to eat the rest of this.
In some ramen shops, they give you a little apron.
Really? That's for me.
Genius, little bib
Why don't
thing.
we get that?